Joining us now, senior advisor to the president, Cedric Richmond. Mr. Richmond, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Why does President Biden think the number of homicides and shootings is up so dramatically in the last 18 months?
Well, part of it is the plethora of guns that are flooding the streets of this country, and that's something that the president wants to deal with. He knows the toll that violence takes on families, and especially gun violence, and what it's doing over the last 18 months in this country.
But let's discuss some of the factors that President Biden didn't mention in his speech this week. Take a look at Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Here he is.
The Biden five-point plan will not address the rise in murder and vicious assaults in this country. We have a lack of prosecution, and we've declared war on the police, and that is backfiring on those who have done it.
Does Senator Graham have a point there?
Absolutely not. In fact, Senator Graham doesn't have a clue. And let's talk about who defunded the police. When we were in Congress last year trying to pass a rescue plan, I'm sorry, not the rescue plan, but an emergency relief plan for cities that were cash-strapped and laying off police and firefighters, it was the Republicans who objected to it. And in fact, they didn't get funding until the American Rescue Plan, which our plan allowed state and local governments to replenish their police departments and do the other things that are needed. So look, Republicans are very good at staying on talking points of who says defund the police, but the truth is they defunded the police. We funded crime intervention and a whole bunch of other things. So I think that this is a very smart, comprehensive approach to dealing with violence in our communities.
But Mr. Richmond, I mean, the gun problem has been a problem for decades. That didn't get dramatically worse over the last 18 months, even as the number of homicides and shootings did. You talk about the police. Let's look at some numbers on the police. The New York Police Department saw a 53% increase in resignations and retirements last year. The 50 biggest U.S. cities reduced their 2021 police budgets by 5%. New York City by 15%. The president may not support defunding the police, but a lot of these cities are defunding the police.
Well, Chris, I don't think that you can just make that analysis or draw that conclusion. We were also in the midst of a pandemic where cities were cutting their budgets overall because their cash flow was down. And so I think that you have to look at it in a very comprehensive approach. But look, crime was down in the 90s when we banned assault weapons. And so it's time to ban assault weapons again. The president supports that. He's asked Congress to do that. And you have to look at access to guns when you talk about fighting violent crime. But we do it in a very comprehensive manner. We provide funding for crime intervention. We fund interrupters. We create funding for after-school programs, summer jobs programs, recreation programs. So we're trying to do this in a way that it has never been done before.
But I think the point that Senator Graham and some Republicans make, beyond just the question of funding, is that there has been an attack on the police, as if they're part of the problem, especially from some Democrats. I also want to talk about the decline in prosecutions, and I've got some numbers here. According to one study, more than 90% of the charges against people protesting and rioting after George Floyd's murder were dropped in most cities. In New York, the ban on cash bail has resulted in the majority of people who are arrested getting released. Doesn't that send exactly the wrong signal both to police and to the criminals who are being arrested?
Chris, look, the prosecutions that state prosecutors make in their charging decisions has to be analyzed by the people who live in those communities. And so I will hold my local DA accountable, and I think that everybody should. But we have to remember here that it is about being smart on crime, and those people who are peacefully protesting should not be prosecuted. Those that are rioting and looting, which the president has said from the beginning of the campaign that they should be held accountable. But that's not causing a spike in murders, homicides, gun violence. That's guns causing that increase. So let's try to keep it at least targeted in terms of what we're talking about here. And when you look at cities like New York, and over the last 18 months, you saw a decline in funding and other things that we seek to address right now.
Yeah, that we should say that was done unilaterally by the mayor of that city, de Blasio. I want to ask you one other crime question. There are, according to the FBI, 33,000 violent street gangs in this country, which I think you would agree play a huge role in the violence and in the mass shootings that take place in America's cities. Look at a city like Chicago. Why is it that in his big crime speech this week, the president did not make a single specific proposal about how to deal with these street gangs?
Actually, he did, Chris. When he talked about the ATF task forces and partnering collaboration with the cities, that's exactly what we're talking about. And so when you look at the fact that we've partnered with 15 cities to look at everything from gun trafficking to gangs. And so a lot of people want to go pick out pieces and look at it, but this is a comprehensive strategy that deals with those violent actors that use guns and those gun dealers that are selling guns out the front and the back door and to people who should not have them. And so that's why the ATF will have a zero tolerance policy on rogue gun dealers, and the ATF and other federal law enforcement agencies are going to team up with local law enforcement agencies to go after those criminals that are using guns.
I mean, respectfully, sir, I got to tell you, we looked at the speech yesterday. The president says the word gangs exactly once in his speech, and it's only when he says we need to keep the weapons of war away from organized crime and fugitives and gangs. But he never has a specific initiative with how to deal with gangs. I want to move. We've got only a couple of minutes left. I want to deal with one other big issue.
Senior advisor to the president, Cedric Richmond, joined Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday. In his opening question to Mr. Richmond, he asked, why does President Biden think the number of homicides and shootings are up dramatically in the past 18 months? His response is, excessive amounts of guns on the streets. What he and all Democrats fail to address when asked this question is, the guns used are stolen. They are not used by upstanding, law-abiding citizens. The senior advisor also mentions how an assault weapons ban in the 90s diminished crime. However, later that year, the Department of Justice said it did nothing to decrease violent crime. Are Democrats trying to use another crisis to try and ban long guns, even though 75% or more of the guns in violent crimes are caused from illegally obtained handguns?